Today we look at the best individual accomplishments of 2021 in Canadian MMA with my list of the top 10 performances of the year. It was another tough one to make there as there were at least 20 performances that could have made the list. I had to make some tough choices, but I'm pretty happy with the results, so let's move on with the list. But before we get going, I've got some honorable mentions. Mariusz Suskiewicz versus Graham Park at Unified 42. Shane Campbell against Hubert Gavin at Unified 42. Mitch Struzella and Glenn Cuevas at BFL 68. Achilles Estremadura against Curtis Demarst at BFL 66. And finally, Yohan Lainesse against Justin Burlinson on the Contender Series. At number 10, it's John Makdessi against Ignacio Bahamondes at UFC Vegas 23. Probably a career best performance for Makdessi, who fought the biggest lightweight on the roster at range and still won despite getting outstruck 2-1. The thing is that Makdessi's in and out movement and his defense was amazing against Bahamondes, and he threw a lot but he wasn't able to do much damage. The opposite didn't apply as Makdessi hurt Bahamondes badly every time he touched him en route to a very convincing win against a legit opponent. At number 9, we've got Prepolec and Dufort at Samourai MMA. Both of these guys left everything they had in the cage in a fight that was won at the last second of the 5th and final round. Prepolec showed us that he still belongs in the UFC, and Dufort showed us that he's ready to, as he went toe-to-toe with the veteran in one of the most memorable fights we've seen on Canadian soil in years. At number 8 is Geauvreau against Izzudeen Atmeh at BTC 10. Not only this performance was incredible on fight night, but it aged like fine wine. Geauvreau was able to dig deep and get the third round submission win in a back and forth affair with fellow pro debut Izzudeen. The fact that he had no prior amateur experience is astonishing, as he looked like a seasoned fighter in there. Then Izzudeen went on to score 2 very impressive finishes in his 2 next fights, proving that Jake is to be taken very seriously despite his young age. At number 7, we've got Nicolas Ouellet against McAloon at BFL 69. McAloon is one of the best grapplers at 145 in Canada, as he used his BJJ skills to fight and defeat some of the toughest fighters in the country. So when a 1-0 fighter like Nicolas Ouellet just comes in and submits him in the very first round like it's nothing, it's quite an impressive feat. Michael Imperato was the only guy who had good enough grappling to fend off McAloon, and he wasn't able to finish him despite having 3 times his experience as a pro. And somehow, Ouellet just did it like it's easy. This guy is so good. At number 6 is Chad Anheliger against Muin Gafurov on the Contender Series. Anheliger was set to fight tough grappler Muin Gafurov in what was considered as a very bad style matchup for him. He was a heavy underdog according to the odds, and the first round seemed to confirm our fears as Gafurov used his wrestling to outpoint the Canadian. But the monster hadn't worked all these years for nothing. He kept pushing the pace on his opponent and kept grappling with him. In the end, he was the fighter with the better gas tank, and he was able to use what everybody thought was his weakness as his main way to win the fight and get himself a UFC contract. Top 5 time, and at number 5 it's Caio Machado against Christian Larsen at BFL 67. Caio Machado was gonna have to endure some serious pain if he was going to survive the first round against Christian Larsen when the Unified and BFL heavyweight champions collided. The thing is that Larsen is a huge and very powerful heavyweight who is at or close to the 265-pound limit. Machado is on the smaller side of the division, and he could easily fight at 205 if he needed to. So it was believed that Machado would need to survive the early onslaught from the bigger fighter and use his cardio to take over in the later rounds. But it wasn't the case, as Machado countered an early Larsen flurry with a perfectly placed hook to knock the bigger fighter out in the very first round to claim Canadian heavyweight supremacy. At number 4, it's Tony Laramie against Tyus at LFA 120. I don't know why, but every time Tony Laramie goes on a layoff, we seem to forget how good he actually is, and we are blown away by his skills every time he returns. That's exactly what happened at LFA 120 when he fought undefeated prospect Tyus. Laramie stalked his opponent down, but he used great side-to-side movement to create angles and absolutely punish his opponent with his power punches for the whole 3 rounds. He also completely shut his opponent's wrestling down, leaving him stuck on the feet where he was getting beat up pretty badly. Tony Laramie once again showed in that fight that he's not far off from the UFC with the performances he keeps putting on. Let's go with the top 3, and at number 3 it's Jourdain against Ewell. Coming off an upset loss to Julian Erosa and facing an opponent that was moving up a weight class, Jourdain felt like he had a point to prove, and he really put out his most complete performance since the beginning of his UFC career. Yes, the duo Choi Caio is a huge highlight reel, but in this fight, Jourdain had Ewell figured out before the end of the first round, and he absolutely outclassed him, winning the second round 10-8 while still staying composed, taking minimal damage and never emptying his gas tank. He ended the third round with one of the vintage moments of the year when he Spartan kicked Ewell in the body as time ran out. He was also able to win his first ever career decision, which is always a good thing for prospects trying to rise up the ranks. At number 2, it's Marc-André Barriault against Dalcha Lungiambula at UFC Vegas 36. This was always going to be a favorable matchup for Barriault, as Dalcha was going to come out very strong in the first round and then gas out badly. The thing is that he didn't, but it never mattered anyway. This was the fight where Barriault showed us a brand new animal. He looked like his older TKO self, as he was unafraid to engage with his opponent and take a shot to give a bitter one. But he was also on a completely different technical level as his training at Sanford MMA starts to reap benefits. His jab was more dangerous than ever, and his more calculated but still dangerous combinations made him an impossible task to overcome for Dalcha. And at number 1, the performance of the year goes to Alex Morgan against Majed Hammo at Samourai MMA. After a very long layoff, Morgan was able to get his feet back under him in France with a good win over a tough opponent. But it was nothing like his Samourai performance, which was by far the best of his career. Morgan showed us that he's more than ready for the big leagues, as his striking, especially his right hand, was faster and sharper than ever. He was also able to defend the guillotine attempts from Hammo, and he was even enough confident to spend some time on top of an opponent who kept on trying submission from his guard. He absolutely dismantled Hammo, who had established himself as the number 2 guy in the country earlier in the year with his huge unified title win against Neil Anderson. Alex Morgan not only won the Samurai featherweight title, but he solidified his status as the best 145er in Canada and as the next guy who absolutely needs to move on to the big show. That's why your 2021 Canadian MMA Performance of the Year goes to Alex Morgan. This concludes my list. Leave a like if you liked and make sure to subscribe to MMA Talk for some more Canadian MMA content. See you next time.